What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of the Jericho Report Weekly News Briefing. It is Sunday, the 9th of October, 2022. Hope everybody's ready for a crazy report. It has been a crazy week. I'm not sure how many more reports we're going to have before we have full-on nuclear war, as the president's coming out and talking about it's going to be nuclear Armageddon. Did you see that? I got a lot to give you this week. As always, first link below, take it to the Patreon post. That's where you can find all the madness, and please share these reports. There's a lot going on people need to know about. Let me start off with this. U.S. Titans travel screening as worries of Ebola mount. Be advised, the Ebola is coming. Emergency management officials warn of new variants in 3 New Mexico counties as they hit all-time COVID levels. Here we go, going into the winter. Oh no, the flu's going to make a comeback too. Moderna and Pfizer start phase 3 trial of mRNA flu vaccine. Imagine that. Put a link to that from the Gateway Pundit. ICANN wins lawsuit forcing CDC to turn over vSafe COVID vaccine injury data. What are they so afraid of? What do they want to keep hiding? I don't know. London Marathon runner 36 dies after collapsing 3 miles from the finish line. What did he die of? I have no idea. Unknown causes. Fully vaccinated people at 44% higher risk of COVID infection than unvaccinated, UK study says. And before the fact checkers take this video down, you might want to scroll down. They got links to the study, the Oxford University study. It's all right there. You can the clickable links. You can go read it on the EDU websites. Doctors told to give drugs to people who don't want. Oh, how could you not want the vax? How do you feel about psychotherapy for COVID vaccine refusers? What do you think about that? Put a link to that. Other news, we got mRNA meat on the way. Somebody brought this up on GLP this week. What happens when they start vaccinating all the chickens and cows and everything? Does it then filter down to everyone who's eating the food? Something to think about. Put a link to this. Joe Biden news this week. He says no one F's with the Biden. I think this is down in Florida.
Yeah, goddamn right.
Put a link to that. And he's confused. Is it 2 words or 3 words, Mr. President? Let's see.
Let me start off with 2 words. Made in America.
You might need a nap, Joe. We got this. Kamala Harris is in the news this week. Apparently her motorcade was involved in an accident.
It's her. There she is. I saw her. She was in the car that crashed.
Indeed, Harris and Secret Service Director concerned over Monday motorcade accident. I just have one question. Was the driver vaccinated? Over to the financial news. How many U.S. stock indexes fared on the Friday? Looks like the Dow Jones fell 630, but for the week, the Dow was up 571, closed at 29,296. So a little bit of an up week for the Dow. Put a link to the recap data. U.S. national debt tops $31 trillion for the first time. Remember back in 2009 when we were all freaking out about the U.S. debt just getting over $8 trillion? Well, now it's $31 trillion. Where's all the people that were screaming it back then? Let's see. UN calls on Fed, other central banks to halt interest rate hikes, says it's going to be disastrous for the economy, says the Wall Street Journal. WEF attendee says the British economy needs a reset as market conditions worsen. Put a link to that. China tells state banks to prepare for massive dollar dump as yuan buying spree. As Beijing prior investors have failed the system currency since 1994. Put a link to that from Market Insider. Big dollar dump. I don't know. White House says OPEC aligning with Russia over production cut. Apparently OPEC is going to cut production. He's going to tap the reserve even more. Is there any left? Glenn Beck said, speaking of the reserve, they were on the ground over in Ukraine and they can't find one sign of the billions and billions of dollars of U.S. aid over there. What's going on? 2012 massive black hole? I don't know. I have 5 IRS employees charged with stealing COVID relief data. Put a link to that. Imagine that. Meanwhile, you got U.S. Postal Service workers arrested in connection with 1.3 million fraud and identity theft scheme, but we're supposed to trust them with the election. Put a link to that. Other news going on. PayPal to expand its speech restriction rules in November. If you still have a PayPal account, I was banned long ago for something I said about, SH, that whole thing that went down. They didn't like what I was saying on YouTube. They banned me. They sent me an email saying, nah, can't do it. I made a video about that though. Be advised, they're cracking down even more. If you still have PayPal, you might be taken down. A couple more here. Elon Musk finally buying Twitter for $54.20 a share, maybe. Put a link to that in USA Today. And I got one at the bottom. Trump sues CNN for $575 million, says it's defaming him to thwart 2024 rally. Over to New World Order and Police State News. This is where I stop and ask you to please share this video. Make people aware of the things that are going on. U.S. Senator introduces No Digital Dollar Act to prohibit Treasury and the Fed. This is to prohibit the Treasury and the Fed to not stop people from using paper currency if a digital currency is introduced. I appreciate your efforts, but we all know the direction this is going in. Federal Reserve goes authoritarian, set to force banks to adopt social score system similar to communist China. I reported on this last week. Here's an updated link. Where's it all going? How about pay with your palm? Check this out. The Amazon Palm Reader. And soon it'll be a chip reader, and you can scan your eyeball, and then they'll put it under your skin. They can just say scan your arm as you're going through the register. We told you this years ago, did we not? Shocking trove of HHS records reveals most aggressive vaccine campaign ever. Why are they so desperate to get you to take this thing? to get you to put something in your body that you want to. Yeah, this is true. Be advised. Fact checkers. JudicialWatch.org uncovers Biden administration propaganda plan to push COVID vaccine. Why? Why? Why do you think? It's called a big idea, a new world order. That's why. Let's see. Australia introduced legislation that grants COVID-19 officials authorization to rip people from their homes to vaccinate them against their will. Put a link to this. It's going on all around the world. Check out the new mask design in China. Apparently, they could you can have your daily PCR test without taking your mask off now. They put a hole right in there so they can just stick it up your nose. Ireland clamping down harder on offensive and online content, making it easier to hate. Of course, they're clamping the internet down all over the world. Back in America, I got some miscellaneous police state news. I think this is San Antonio PD fires officer who shot teen. Let me play this video for you. The cop claims that this car had fled from him like the night before, so he walks up and just opens the door. He's eating a burger, and the guy starts to take off. I guess he doesn't want to stop for the police, but then the cop just unloads on him. Watch this.
Shots fired! Shots fired! Shots fired!
Not exactly out of the manual, is it? I mean, the cop was fired, but I mean, there was a passenger in the car. The driver was hit. The passenger was okay. I think the driver's going to be okay. The lawsuit he's going to file against the police department. I mean, maybe he's going to be charged with probably assaulting an officer because he did back up and kind of. But I think the lawsuit he's going to win will far outweigh the charges they're going to put. Anyway, Biden pardons thousands of people convicted of marijuana possession. I like this move, although I think it's purely a political move, seeing as how the midterms are right around the corner. Put a link to that. And Dems okay giving non-citizens right to vote. I'll put a link to that. Speaking of and then more migrants dropped off in New York City, and VP Harris says that's okay. They have the right to vote. But of course, will we even make it through the midterm elections? Over to World War III news. Holy shit, people. That's all I can say. This is going beyond anything we've seen before. Biden warns the world it is facing the prospect of Armageddon. Armageddon. The President of the United States, the man with the nuclear launch code, is saying these kind of things. This comes as HHS purchases a drug for radiological and nuclear emergencies. They're making a big-time drug purchase, expecting a nuclear emergency. Poland in talks with the U.S. about hosting nuclear weapons. That from Zero Hedge. We got this. Putin sends the nuclear train to the front line. Put a link to this. Britain sends warships to the North Sea to protect underwater gas and oil pipelines, internet cables from Russian sabotage after Nord Stream. I heard somebody else got their internet cable cut somewhere. I don't have a link on that. But I'll put a link to that. Russian nuclear submarine armed with doomsday weapon appears in the Arctic harbor. Disappears, I should say, from the Arctic harbor. The doomsday submarine is gone. Put a link to this from Fox News. Other news, Zelensky signs decree ruling out peace talks with Putin as impossible. He's saying there's no hope for peace. And apparently he's talking about calling for preemptive strikes against Russia. I'll put a link to this. Man, oh man, Ukrainian ambassador Elon, apparently Elon Musk is trying to get involved, trying to negotiate he made some sort of statement saying, well, Ukraine should redo the elections and ask the people if they want Crimea or Russia. Apparently the ambassador took offense. No Ukrainian will ever buy your crap. I'll put a link to this. Other news going on, U.S. promises severe costs for anyone who supports the new Russia annexations in Ukraine. Put a link to that. North Korea in the news this week. All over the place. North Korea flies 12 warplanes near South Korean border, prompting a forced scramble. This is on top of all of they're apparently shot all these new missiles and shit all over the place. They're just shooting missiles one after the other. I'll put a link to this. North Korea conducts largest long-range missile test yet over Japan. You might say, oh, the war drums are just beating how they're always beating. No, I don't think so, man. I think we're just a matter of days, weeks, if not days. Things are going to go hot. There's too much beating of the drums now. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Over to Earth changes in 2012 news. I got the earthquake set up for 6 points and above for the past week. There's been no 6 points in the past week. I find that hard to believe. Drop it down to 5. A lot of 5s going on around the world. I'll put a link to the earthquake data. I do have one earthquake story, earthquake adjacent anyway. Metrolink and Amtrak suspend service between LA and San Diego indefinitely due to the ground shifting. I'll put a link to that. And I got a couple in Volcano. Sacred Easter Island statues suffer irreparable damage after volcano fire. I'll put a link to this. I got a second link on that. Easter Island faces irreparable damage to the famous Moai statues. I ended up watching a documentary about the Moai statues. Some interesting stuff out there on how those things came to be. Right, I'll put a link to that. Man plugs $80,000 electric truck into his home, finds out it's going to take 4 days to charge. This is electrical vehicle news. And another one, electrical vehicles are apparently exploding from water damage after the hurricane. Yeah, you could watch some interesting videos on YouTube about how lithium interacts with water when they're mixed. That's what's going on down in there. So these electric cars, I don't know, man, might not be a good idea. Let's see, helicopter crash out in Fresno. Check it out. You just sit on your porch. What if you see this thing? Look at As helicopter crashes go, I'd say it went pretty good. I'll put a link to this. Here's a story here. California helicopter crash lands in neighborhood. Everybody survived. A couple of people a little, beaten up. Wasn't too lucky for the passengers of the plane in Minnesota, though. 3 passengers dead after plane crashes into a home in Minnesota. Put a link to that. Let's see other stuff going on. USDA now asking people to register their vegetable gardens for national database. How about no? Yeah, no. National Grid, be advised, my friends in the UK, unveils plan for 3-hour blackouts this winter to tackle gas shortage. Put a link to that. And I got one more at the bottom. Might not matter. Solar storm warning. Direct hit on Earth expected. I think this was supposed to happen maybe yesterday or maybe today. Be advised. 2012 is really 2022. I don't know. It makes sense to me. Anyway, over to strange and bizarre news. Stampede triggered as tear gas leaves 125 dead. Indonesia soccer match, I guess things weren't going well, or things were going well. I don't know how it goes over in Indonesia in soccer, but people decided to trample each other, and tear gas was launched, and people were beating each other up. A bunch of people died. Tragic news here, at least 38 dead, including 24 children, after ex-police officer opens fire on a daycare in Thailand. I'll put a link to this. Apparently he killed his wife and daughter and then went to the daycare and started killing. What the hell is going on? Train victims back in America. Train victims, complete animals, bizarre neon leotards are apparently attacking and robbing people on a New York subway. I don't know what this is. I'll put a link to it. People wearing all green, robbing people on the subway. Meanwhile, at another subway station in New York, you had this. Buck naked man goes on ape shit. I can't play too much of this because craziness in the New York subway. Meanwhile, over in Chicago, crime in Chicago, the ET up there is making videos doing karaoke. I don't know. Satanic Temple right next door in Indiana over abortion ban. They're suing Indiana over the abortion bans, claims it violates their religious rights. Put a link to that. The D-bag tax. New York women are charging men up to $3,000 for failed relationships and bad dates. Yeah, stick it up your ass. Doctor reveals your blood affects your sex life. Check this out. Did you know this? Eating lots of red meat and ice cream damages vessels, making it harder to maintain an erection. I call bullshit. In my 44 years on this earth, I have eaten a ton of red meat and a ton of ice cream, and there ain't nothing wrong with my yang. Okay, put a link to this from the Daily Mail. Bullshit. Vermont girls high school volleyball team barred from their own locker room after complaining about transgender student who uses it as made it. I'll put a link to this. This is more of this going on. Number of kids diagnosed with gender dysphoria exploded 70% in a year. What is going on? A couple more here. Do you think taxpayers should be having to pay for transgender-funded reassignment surgeries while people are in prison? Put a link to this. And I got one more at the bottom. Rust movie producers are going back to work after they reach settlement. Alec Baldwin's going to make his movie. For all the news, please check my favorite videos. All kinds of stuff over there. You got the Joe Biden marijuana thing. Criminal, what doctors did to this young girl. They convinced her that she was a boy and did all this surgery, and now she doesn't want to be a boy. That video will break your heart. This is how long it takes to charge up a 2023 GMC. This Columbia professor blames Biden for blowing up pipeline. All kinds of fresh news in my favorites. Definitely shout out to everybody still making videos, keeping everybody informed. You guys are doing awesome work. I got a couple shout outs this week, and we've seen this one before. Man claims he was paid $21,000 for 3D printed guns at New York AG's buyback event in Utica. Not the first time this has happened. Check this out. What happened here?
Is she literally put a bounty on 3D printed guns. She said, I will give you extra money if it doesn't have a serial number on it. They made no specifications. They didn't touch on any details.
Shout out to this guy for walking away with $21,000 after turning in 3D printed guns that he printed specifically for the gun buyback program. I say shout out to him, and shout out to the schoolgirls in Iran. Schoolgirls without their hijabs on confront and chase off director of education. Shout out to the protests that are going on in Iran. People standing up, taking that shit off their head and saying, I'm a human being. I'm not going to be treated like this anymore. Makes me think of Pastor James David Manning pops into my head. We're not going to take this foolishness any longer. Shout out to the people in Iran, and shout out to enslaved people all over the world that are standing up and saying, bullshit. We're not doing this crap anymore. Anyway, that's all I got for these guys. If you like the report, please give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If you think it sucked, it's the worst. You think I'm just overboard, I'm just saying this guy's crazy, thumbs it down. I don't care. Just please rate it. It helps me around. You can also follow me on all my links below. Patreon, Gab, Twitter, Facebook. All the links are at the bottom. Make sure you're following me multiple places in case videos go missing, because you never know. You can support me on Patreon or directly with DonorBox. I put a lot into these reports. A lot went into this one. It has been a crazy week of news. Please tell me what you think about the President of the United States talking about it might be nuclear Armageddon, and here comes the Ebola, and here comes the flu mRNA vaccine, and all this madness, people. Madness. And like I said, it's a big idea, a new world order, and we warned you about it for years on end, and we were called crazy, and now it's all in your face. You guys take care, stay safe. Thank you for hanging out with me for a few minutes on a Sunday. I love you very much. Have a good week. Have a good rest of the weekend. I will see you on the next one.